In this video, we're going to cover some Maven key concepts. So we'll start with a discussion of the POM file, and then we'll also take a look at project coordinates and how we can use it in our POM file. Alrighty, so starting here with the POM file. The POM file is your project object model file. This is your configuration file for your project. So this is basically your shopping list for Maven. This is where you tell Maven, hey, we depend on X number of dependencies, go out and find those for us. And this POM file is always located in the root of your Maven project. Now let's look at the POM file structure. So basically you'll have the project metadata, you'll have a list of dependencies, and you'll have a list of plugins. So the project metadata is basically information about your project, like the name of your project, which version number, and also the output file type, like jar file, WAR file, etc. The dependencies basically tell it, hey, this is the list of projects that we depend on. So if you depend on Spring or Hibernate or JSON, you'll list those dependencies there. And then also you'll have a list of plugins. So these are like additional custom tasks to run. So you can use this for generating like JUnit test reports and so on. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and look at a simple POM file. So here's the file that starts with project, model version, that's always the same. Then we have our metadata. So this is where we can give the project name. So here the name is MyCoolApp. We can give the group ID, artifact ID, and the version number. And we can also specify the packaging. So in this example, the packaging will be for a jar file. So the next section here is the dependencies. So this is where we list out all the dependencies that we need for our application. In this example, they make use of JUnit, but you can also add dependencies here for Spring, Hibernate, and etc. I'll show you some examples of adding Spring and Hibernate a little later in this video. So at the bottom, we can add plugins for customization. So we can add some additional custom tasks, for example, generating JUnit test reports and so on. So let's go ahead and talk about project coordinates. So project coordinates uniquely identify a project. It's similar to GPS coordinates for your house, like the latitude and longitude. It's basically precise information on how to find your house. So if I wanted to come visit you, I'd ask for your city, your street, and your house number. And that'll give me the specifics on how to find your given location. So the group ID could be like the city, the artifact ID could be the street, and then the version could be the actual house number. So some specific coordinates on how to find your house. And we use a similar thing here in the Maven world to identify a project. So a bit more on these project coordinates as far as the specific elements here. So basically what we'll do is we'll have this group ID. So the group ID is basically the name of your company, group, or organization. The convention that's used is to use the reverse domain name. So in my example, I'll call it com.love2code. It's very similar to the convention that's used for Java package naming. And then we have the artifact ID. So the artifact ID is the name for this project. So whatever your project is called, that's the artifact ID. And then the version is the specific release version that you have for your project, like version 1.0, 1.6, 2.0, and so on. If the project is under active development, then you can use 1.0-snapshot. So snapshot means that this work is still under active development. So let's look at some real examples of project coordinates. So we saw the example up top of our com.love2code example. And let's look at the dependency for the Spring project. Notice here we have the group ID, the artifact ID, and the version. And let's also do a similar thing by looking at the dependency information for Hibernate. So here we have the group ID, the artifact ID, and the version. All right, now adding dependencies here. So if I wanted to add support for Spring and Hibernate to my project, then I would simply add in those dependencies in the dependency section. So here I have a reference here for the Spring framework, Spring-context, and then also for the org Hibernate, I add in the Hibernate-core. And so this is, again, Maven's shopping list. So Maven will actually go out to the internet and pull down these, the related jar files for this project, and we can use them in our application. All right, so to add a given dependency project, we need the group ID and the artifact ID. The version is actually optional, but the best practice is to include the version for repeatable builds. And this is the best practice for using DevOps. You want to be able to say, hey, our project works with version XYZ of a given project, just so you know that that part has been tested, verified, and worked. And it's very, very important in the DevOps world. So always use the version. I recommend that as a best practice. And also, you may see this referred to as GAV or GAV. So that basically means group ID, artifact ID, version. Now, you may see documentation where they'll say, hey, what's your GAV or GAV? Or you may hear other Java developers say, hey, what's the GAV for the project or what's the GAV for the project? So you may hear this nomenclature, but again, it's basically just a little acronym here for group ID, artifact ID, and version. All right, so we saw that, and we saw that information for those Spring and Hibernate projects, but you may wonder, well, how'd you find those dependency coordinates? Well, you have two options. The first option is that you can actually visit the project page, so you can visit the Spring website or the Hibernate website, and they'll give you the details that you'll need to add their project using Maven. The other option is that you could go to the Maven Central Repository and actually search for those projects, and then you can also get those details. I like to say that option 2 is the easiest approach because that's just one site you go to look for it. If you use option 1, option 1's fine if you only have like 1 or 2 dependencies, but imagine on a enterprise project, real world, real time, your project may use 5, 10, maybe 20 dependencies, and you don't want to have to go to all 20 websites to find out their Maven coordinates. Using option 2, you can go to this search.maven.org, you simply type in those dependencies, and you'll get all the information there. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop as far as getting the dependency coordinates.